I'm Dr. Binita Kane. I'm a consultant respiratory physician with a special interest in long COVID and ME, and I treat mainly the moderate to severe end of the spectrum. I'm very grateful to be speaking to you today, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'd like to dedicate my talk to Eliana Greer. She's an 18-year-old who is a constituent of Ainsdale in Merseyside, and I have her permission to speak about her. In 2021, Ellie was an exceptionally talented 14-year-old. She was a grade 8 pianist, a singer, a dancer, a gymnast, and she was living a fairly quiet life with her parents and younger brother. After being infected with COVID-19 in September 2021, she developed long COVID, which sadly has developed into very severe ME. Fast forward to 2025, Ellie has been bedbound for nearly 3 years. She's now fed through a tube as swallowing, chewing, digestion uses too much energy. She can't sit upright for more than a few minutes without losing consciousness, as she suffers from a very severe form of POTS, which is part of the ME spectrum. She has no regular NHS support. I'm just going to repeat that. She has no regular NHS support, apart from some light touch contact with her GP, who is doing their best to manage her, but doesn't really know how, and a dietitian who manages her feeds. Her parents care for her 24/7 without any respite, and she has no scope for diagnostics, treatment, or recovery. And there are many like her up and down the country. I'd like everyone listening to reflect for a moment how in 2025 we can have a child, well, now a young adult, who is this sick and can have such little support. How did we get here? Well, we've got here because we have not invested in the research. We therefore don't have diagnostic tests or treatments. We therefore don't have the services to deliver them, or investment in medical education or training of specialists. There's a long and some would say dark history of how and why we have got here, but fundamentally the reason is that this disease has been wrongly psychologized. We haven't listened to patients, and in fact patients have been silenced for decades. Now that might sound slightly far-fetched, but my colleague and friend Dr Regeshri Daryawan has written this book. It's called Unheard, the medical practice of silencing, and it really highlights how certain minoritized groups, and that includes minority ethnic groups, women, have been excluded from research, and how this leads to huge health inequalities. It's a brilliant read, and it kind of makes sense of how we've got here. So this leaves us in an unprecedented situation where we have well over 1 million people affected by a condition where we don't have any licensed treatments, and we have services that are really not fit for purpose, and patients are being forced into the private sector for help. So what do we need to do from here? Well, let's look for inspiration from some other disease areas where we have been successful, for example, cancer research. 200 years ago, believe it or not, cancer was thought to be a psychological disease, and behavioural therapy might have been offered as a treatment. But over the last 100 years, we've discovered links between cause and effect. There's been huge national and international research investment, and we've characterised different cancers. We've developed precision treatments, right down to individual receptors on individual tumours. And if I went to a doctor now and said, how do you treat cancer? The doctor would say, well, we have to work out what type of cancer it is and how we specifically target that type. Cancer is just an umbrella term, and no one would ever think we would treat brain cancer the same as lung cancer, for example. So we are at this 100 years ago mark in our understanding of long COVID and ME. These are umbrella terms. They capture a whole range of pathologies. I could reel them all off, but there's lots and lots of different things that are lumped together under these umbrella terms, things like mast cell activation, POTS, dysautonomia, immune dysfunction, etc. And there are also overlaps with other neglected conditions like the Ehlers-Danlos syndromes, fibromyalgia, and various other conditions as well. We've got this spaghetti soup and we need to start untangling it. What's it going to take? Well, it's amazing that the joint APPGs have come together, that there are people who are working together to solve this problem, and the community is extremely grateful. This is a really, really good start. We've got to build on what we've done already, so standing on the shoulders of giants like Professor Altman, like Professor Ponting, who have already set up these large research programs. It's a global problem that needs a global solution. We do need to work with other countries, but the UK needs to come together first as one national team with a national registry, a big national research effort to understand how best to serve the community, how best to spend any investment that we get and drive forward that scientific discovery, and also to create and provide that clinical leadership that we desperately need in this disease area. This needs investment. What we can't do, however, is let the most severely affected patients be abandoned by the system behind closed doors for another 2 or 3 decades while we wait for the research advancements. We have to, in parallel, put provisions in place by the NHS for those like Ellie who are severely affected, based on what we know. And critically, this must include access to off-label drug therapy and avoiding historical treatments that we know are harmful. So, what can you do as MPs? What is the ask? Well, the final delivery plan for ME is a huge opportunity. I've been involved in the discussions, as has Professor Strain, Professor Ponting. They've been actually brilliant discussions, really promising. And there is so much opportunity to get this right. But without the investment, it's going to be impossible to implement it properly, and it simply can't be ambitious enough. We recognise that the economic situation is difficult, but the investment required will be a drop in the ocean compared to the health economic impact of this illness, which runs into the billions. The cost of doing nothing is far higher. I'm writing ill health retirement letters for teachers, healthcare workers, people in their 30s, and the children. The children affected will become chronically ill adults unless we do something differently. This is our future workforce. This has to be a priority for the UK. We also want to ensure that we're better prepared for the next pandemic, as we've been badly caught out by this one. So please do what you can to influence the ministers, the funding allocation, speaking with your affected constituents, and raising this in Parliament wherever possible. It's too important not to. Working together, we can aspire to a situation where if a child like Ellie falls ill, she will have access to tests, specialist advice, medication, support to prevent her from getting worse, and she'll have dedicated services and resources to access. We don't think as a community this is too much to ask for. We can't turn the clock back for Ellie. She's already lost 4 years of her childhood. But we can commit to ending this perpetual cycle of history repeating itself. And we can change the future for people suffering with these conditions. Thank you.